My parents let my cousin live in my room while I was in the hospital and said I was overreacting. You'd think that after surviving a near-death experience, your own family will be the first to welcome you back with love and care. But what if instead, you returned home to find a stranger sleeping in your bed, your posters ripped off the wall, your clothes shoved into garbage bags? And the worst part? That stranger was your cousin, invited by your own parents while you were still hooked up to hospital machines. They told me I was overreacting. But what would you do if your life was replaced before you even got the chance to live it again? It started with a crash, a literal, bone-shattering crash that changed my life in a second. I was driving home from work on a rainy Friday evening, tired, soaked, but looking forward to a quiet night binging a new show. I was halfway through an intersection, green light glowing above me, when I saw it, a blur of headlights speeding from my left. A drunk driver going 80 in a 35 zone. The impact came before I could scream. I don't remember much after that. Just flashes. Metal crushing. Glass raining into my lap. Pain blooming from every inch of my body. Then blackness. I woke up 2 days later in the ICU, with a nurse adjusting my oxygen mask and a machine beeping beside me. I was told I had a fractured femur, cracked pelvis, 3 broken ribs, a bruised lung, and a concussion. I couldn't move without pain. I couldn't even breathe deeply without it stabbing like a knife in my chest. My mom showed up that evening. Her face was pale and puffy like she'd been crying, but she tried to smile and said, "We're just glad you're okay." My dad followed behind her, stiff and distracted, talking about insurance paperwork and towing fees like it was all just a major inconvenience. I was too out of it to question their tone. The weeks that followed were brutal. Physical therapy, breathing exercises, sponge baths, more scans than I could count. The nurses were kinder than my family. My best friend visited more than my parents. I chalked it up to stress, or distance, or maybe guilt. Every time I asked when I could come home, my mom would say something like, "Soon, sweetie. We're getting everything ready for you." I imagine my room being cleaned up, maybe even redecorated. A cozy welcome home banner. I pictured coming back to my bed, my books, my comfort zone. But nothing could have prepared me for what actually waited. 6 weeks after the crash, I was discharged. I couldn't walk yet, still bound to a wheelchair, but I was alive. Scarred, aching, humbled but alive, and eager to heal at home. The car ride was quiet. My dad focused on the road. My mom was texting someone nonstop. I assumed it was family, maybe planning something sweet. I even felt a flicker of gratitude. That died the moment we pulled into the driveway. There were extra cars parked outside, ones I didn't recognize. At first, I thought maybe they were hosting a small surprise party. But the mood didn't fit. My dad looked annoyed. My mom looked nervous. I asked, "Who's here?" "Oh, just Amy," my mom replied, as if that answered everything. Amy, my cousin, the one from Atlanta who once called me dead weight at Thanksgiving. We hadn't spoken since I was 15. She was selfish, manipulative, and always surrounded by drama. "She's staying with us for a bit," my dad added, already wheeling me toward the house. Inside, the smell of buttered popcorn and floral body spray hit me first. Then I heard her laugh. Loud. Fake. Too familiar. Amy was sprawled across the living room couch, legs crossed, wearing one of my mom's robes like a queen visiting her peasants. The TV blasted some reality show, and she didn't even pause it when we walked in. Instead, she waved lazily and said, "Hey, look who's back." I thought maybe it was temporary, maybe she was just visiting, maybe she was sleeping on the couch. But when I asked to go to my room, my mom hesitated. Then she said the words that would trigger the most surreal emotional betrayal I've ever felt. "Honey, we set you up in the den for now, just until Amy gets settled." My hands clenched the arms of my wheelchair. Why would Amy need my room? "She's going through a lot right now," my dad muttered. She needed a place. She had nowhere to go. And I almost died. I shot back. "Where's my stuff?" "In the garage," my mom said, like that somehow made it okay. "We labeled everything." Labeled? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Still, part of me thought maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe she just borrowed the room. Maybe she didn't touch anything. So I wheeled myself to my old bedroom. The door no longer had my name on it. It had hers. And when I opened it, it wasn't just borrowed, it was claimed. My fairy lights? Gone. My bookshelf? Emptied. My art and sketches, replaced by makeup organizers and LED ring lights. My bed, new sheets, new pillows, different scent. Her clothes hung in my closet. My drawers were stuffed with her makeup kits, hair products, and stacks of Instagram props. It wasn't my room anymore, and it wasn't an accident. She had moved in like she owned it. I stared at the doorframe of what used to be my sanctuary, and it physically hurt more than any bruise on my body. The name Amy was scribbled on a whiteboard stuck to the door, complete with glitter stickers and a dumb little smiley face. Like this was her college dorm, not my bedroom in my parents' house. I wheeled myself into the room, still hoping, praying, that maybe this was some temporary setup. Maybe she was just using the space. Maybe my parents had stored my stuff safely. That hope didn't last. All of my things had been either packed away, tossed out, or shoved into boxes in the garage like they were meaningless clutter. Not a single photo of mine was on the wall. My bedside lamp? Gone. Even the knitted throw blanket my grandmother made before she died, gone. In its place, piles of Amy's designer handbags, half-open makeup palettes, a bright pink yoga mat, and a full-length mirror that definitely didn't belong to us. She had taken over, and no one had warned me. I wheeled back into the hallway, my voice shaking with rage. Why is all my stuff gone? My mom, who had been trailing behind me awkwardly, tried to smile. Sweetie, we didn't want to overwhelm you right after discharge. You're still healing, and Amy, well, she was going through some things too. She didn't almost die, Mom. Don't be dramatic, she snapped. You're alive. That's what matters. Amy was in a very unstable situation, and this was the only space we had. I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because the gaslighting was insane. Mom, you had 6 weeks to make other arrangements. 6 weeks. Why didn't you ask her to sleep in the den? Or the couch? She needed privacy, my dad said from the living room, not even bothering to look up from his phone. She's been through a lot. I was floored, and I didn't. That was when Amy walked in, sipping a soda and scrolling on her phone like she hadn't just taken over a disabled person's room. I offered to switch if it's that big of a deal, she said, in that sugar-coated tone manipulators love to use. But your mom said it would be bad for your recovery. My mom nodded like Amy was being so selfless. I could feel my pulse pounding in my temples. I was in the hospital for 6 weeks, and you didn't even ask me. You didn't ask me, Mom. You just gave away my room. You're overreacting, she said, her face pinched with fake concern. It's just a room. That broke something in me. Because it wasn't just a room. It was where I recovered from my first heartbreak. Where I stayed up nights dreaming of getting out of this town. Where I built my safe place when everything else felt like chaos. That room held me, the version of me that I had to rebuild after that crash. And now it was hers. Amy's. To add insult to injury, the den they had set up for me was basically a storage room with a fold-out futon and a dusty old lamp. No windows. No insulation. It smelled like mildew and cat litter. You expect me to recover in here? I asked, choking on disbelief. It's temporary, my dad grumbled. You'll be walking again soon. Stop acting like a victim. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I didn't either. I just shut the door behind me and sat in that cold, dark den with tears sliding silently down my cheeks. I felt like a guest in my own home. Worse than that, an inconvenience. That night in the musty den, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Amy, lounging in my bed, scrolling through her phone like she hadn't stolen months of my peace. My back ached from the uneven futon springs, and my soul hurt even worse. I kept asking myself one question on repeat. How could my own parents do this to me? By morning, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to be cast aside in my own home. If Amy wanted to stay, fine, but I was going to reclaim my space. That room was mine. My memories, my recovery, my comfort. She had no right to it. I wheeled myself into the hallway, still sore from surgery, and made my way to the bedroom. The door was shut. I knocked. Amy, I said, doing my best to sound calm. I need to get some of my things. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. Then I opened the door, and what I saw made my jaw drop. She was filming a TikTok. In my room. Ring light on. Bluetooth speaker blasting. She wore one of my old college hoodies, something she had no right to touch. and was dancing like this was her personal studio. "Oh my God!" she shrieked when she saw me, pausing the music. "You can't just barge in." I stared at her, stunned. "This is my room, Amy." She rolled her eyes. "Ugh, you're so dramatic. Your mom said I could use it until I get my apartment." I wheeled further inside, scanning the space. She'd redecorated, removed the photos of me and my friends, put up fairy lights. There was even a new rug on the floor, like she was actively trying to erase me. "I need my laptop," I said, trying to keep my voice even. She shrugged. "I think it's in one of the boxes in the garage." I needed the desk for my makeup. "You went through my stuff?" I could feel my throat tightening. She scoffed. "It was cluttered. You should be thanking me for organizing it." Something in me snapped. "You are living in my space, wearing my clothes, and tossing out my things like I'm already gone. I just spent 6 weeks in a hospital, Amy. 6 weeks wondering if I'd walk again. And you think I should be grateful?" Just then, my mom walked in, clearly having heard the raised voices. "What's going on in here?" she said, looking annoyed, not concerned. I turned to her, eyes wide. "Mom," she threw away my journals. "My photos. She's filming TikToks in my room like she owns it." Amy crossed her arms. "She's being paranoid." "I'm not paranoid," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm hurt, and I have a right to be." Instead of comforting me, my mother let out a deep sigh. "This again? I told you this was temporary." Amy needed the space. "She's going through a transition, and you're making everything about yourself." Everything inside me froze. Making it about myself? I could hardly believe it. I was literally recovering from surgeries and trauma, and somehow I had become the villain in my own home, the selfish one. "You made me feel disposable," I said quietly, like a placeholder until someone more convenient came along. My dad appeared in the doorway behind her, looking irritated. "You're making the house tense. Either drop it or find another place to stay." The room went silent. Amy smirked behind them. That was the moment I realized they weren't going to choose me. Not over Amy. Not over their twisted sense of peacekeeping. Not even when I had barely survived. And maybe that said everything. I didn't cry when they told me to drop it. I didn't yell or slam any doors. I just went quiet. There's a kind of pain that's so deep, so cold, it freezes you. That's what I felt wheeling back into the den, my exile. The room was barely big enough for me to move around in. It smelled like dust and forgotten laundry. But that night, I didn't sleep. I planned. They wanted me silent. They wanted me out of sight. But if they weren't going to stand up for me, then I'd have to stand up for myself. The next morning, I waited until everyone left. Dad to work, Mom to some church thing, and Amy, predictably, to get coffee with her influencer friend. I wheeled back into my room. It wasn't just that she'd moved in. It was that she tried to erase me. Photos, awards, even a small wooden box I kept under my bed with letters from an old boyfriend gone. Replaced with ring lights, fake ivy, pastel throw pillows. It wasn't my room anymore. It was her brand. But then I opened the closet and found something that changed everything. At the very top shelf, shoved behind a suitcase, was a familiar plastic container. My old stuff. Some of it, anyway. I pulled it down and opened it, my hands shaking. Inside were torn pages of my journals. Not missing. Ripped. Some pages crumpled. Others had sticky notes with mocking comments in Amy's handwriting. "So dramatic. Wow, victim much. No wonder he left you." My stomach dropped. This wasn't just carelessness. This was malicious. She had read my private journals and mocked me. She had dug through my most vulnerable thoughts and decided they were fair game for entertainment. I sat there, stunned, flipping through the wreckage of what was once mine. That's when I saw the envelope. It was tucked under the journals, almost like it had slipped in by accident. It was a lease agreement, dated 2 weeks ago, with my parents' names listed as landlords. Amy wasn't temporarily staying. She was renting my room. They were charging her a small fee, almost symbolic, but it was official, signed and everything. They'd formally given away my space while I was recovering in the hospital, and no one had told me. I felt something shift in my chest. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a confirmation. They hadn't just made a bad call. They had made a choice. And they had chosen Amy. By the time everyone got back home that evening, I was sitting in the living room, folder in hand. Calm. focused. Mom walked in first. "What are you doing out here?" I looked up at her, holding the lease. "I found this," I said. "So, you're officially renting out my room now." Her eyes widened. Wait, you went through Amy's things." "My things," I corrected her. She had no right to touch my journals. She tore them up. She left mocking comments all over them. Amy walked in just in time to hear that. "Oh my God, you're snooping through my stuff now. You mean the stuff you shoved into a bin with my private writing? That you vandalized?" I stood up, legs shaking, but I didn't care. "You've been living in my room, tearing apart my memories, and filming TikToks in the same place I used to cry myself to sleep while recovering from surgery. And now I find out my parents made a legal agreement to give it away." I looked directly at Mom. "You didn't even wait until I came home to ask. You just assumed I'd be fine being erased." Dad stepped in then, his tone sharp. "You're being dramatic. That room is just a space. You're home now. Let's just move forward." "No," I said. "You don't get to gaslight me out of my own pain. I'm not overreacting. You just don't want to deal with the guilt." They tried to talk over me, tried to change the subject. Amy scoffed and called me unstable. But I didn't back down. I told them I was moving out. Not in a rage, not as a punishment, but because I couldn't heal in a house where I wasn't safe. Moving out wasn't easy. I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't have savings beyond what I'd managed to scrape together before my hospital stay. But I had something stronger than stability. I had clarity. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I knew I deserved better than being treated like a guest in my own life. I left that weekend, packed what little I had that wasn't in Amy's TikTok backdrop, and loaded it into the back of my friend Josh's truck. Josh had offered me his spare room, just a mattress on the floor and a creaky desk, but it felt like freedom. No one begged me to stay. No one tried to stop me. My mom gave me a passive, "You know you always have a place here," but the way she avoided eye contact told me even she didn't believe it anymore. Amy didn't come downstairs, not even a goodbye, and so I left. At first, it was liberating. I slept without tension in my chest. I started journaling again, not out of trauma, but peace. I even picked up a freelance gig editing audio for a podcast, which slowly became regular work. But 2 months later, I got a call. It was my dad. He sounded broken. "Hey," he said, voice hoarse. "I know we haven't talked much, but can you come by the house?" I hesitated. "Why?" "It's Amy," he said. She caused a scene." That didn't surprise me. But then he added, "She trashed your room, and now she's gone." I agreed to stop by, not out of obligation, but because I needed closure. When I arrived, the house felt eerily quiet. My room, the one I'd been exiled from, was in chaos. The vanity was overturned. Her ring light was snapped in half. Makeup and clothes littered the floor like confetti from a breakdown. She found out we weren't going to keep covering her rent. Mom said, voice hollow. We told her it was time to move out. She lost it. Turns out, Amy had quit her part-time job months ago. She'd been using their home as a studio for clout. And when they cut her off financially, she spiraled. She screamed, threw things, and told my parents they were useless and fake supporters. Then she packed up and left. No note, no apology, no remorse. I guess we enabled her, Mom whispered. We just thought she needed a safe space. No, I said calmly. You gave her mine. You made her pain more important than my healing. And now you're seeing who she really is. For once, they didn't argue. They didn't defend her. Or themselves. They just stood there, looking ashamed. But what came next surprised me the most. My dad walked over to the broken bookshelf. Carefully, almost nervously, he pulled out a plastic container. It was full of my old journals, the ones I thought were destroyed. I found these in the attic, he said quietly. I think she only took the ones in your closet. I'm sorry I didn't protect them better. For a moment, I didn't say anything. My throat tightened. That apology, it wasn't enough to undo everything. But it was a start. I'm not moving back in, I told them. I'm rebuilding somewhere new. Somewhere mine. They nodded. There was no begging this time. Just acceptance. Months later, I was living on my own in a small apartment across town. Cozy, quiet, safe. I hung a single-framed photo on my bedroom wall. Me, sitting in a hospital bed, smiling weakly with a notebook in my lap. A reminder of how far I'd come, of what I'd survived and what I'd reclaimed. My parents still reach out now and then. Our relationship is strained but civil. They're in therapy, or so they say. As for Amy, she reappeared on TikTok months later. New city, new drama. Still chasing fame. Still avoiding accountability. But I've stopped checking. I've stopped looking back. Because this isn't her story anymore. It's mine.